Charity, last time we spoke, there was this conversation around whether there's a thin line or the line is very clear between hate speech and freedom of press. You did participate in all the media hearings, and we know the role the media played in the 1994 genocide against the Tutsis. And I want to hear your thoughts in terms of the building blocks that since 30 years later that have been put in place to ensure that there's a clear line, clear understanding that, hey, this is hate speech. It is not freedom of expression. We know of a leader within the region who actually outrightly declared war on a fellow country. Are there any jurisprudence or any guiding legal processes that clearly indicate this is hate speech and it has these consequences, because we know the role that media can play in that sense?
Thank you very much. And before I go into that, I just want to, maybe in response to the role of the international community, just say that while ICTR could have been better when it comes to the spending of money, it was important that the world community comes together and recognizes the genocide. It was important that jurisprudence comes around these issues, around the international jurisprudence, around the genocide, and especially that of the Tutsis. And things are put in place. For example, like you were saying, when does hate speech go into persecution? Because the accused were found guilty of persecution as a crime against humanity, direct and public incitement to genocide. So when does this become a responsibility of the fourth estate? And now it's not just the fourth estate as we know them, the Al Jazeera, the big ones that people watch, but we know right now most of our young people are listening to TikTok, they're on social media, and what is the responsibility of the person behind the keyboard? There's Twitter, you know, where they actually say that they can actually mob justice you on social media.
They did that to the president of Kenya, kicked him out of Twitter.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So when is there responsibility and individual responsibility for what you say? And this comes from a level where it's at the bottom level where even the person behind the keyboard just decides to either, and we've seen this even in schools, bully children into committing suicide, you know, things like that. But coming back to this, when people have the microphone like I do, they have a responsibility that you have to your neighbor. No right is completely, no right does not have duties. A right has to have a duty. Your right to speak also starts where your duty to me for safety. So when you start talking, for example, against a certain ethnic group, and I'll tell you, for example, people might not know, I see very many young people, but right from 1990, was it around the early 90s, the magazine, which was a little tabloid magazine called Kangura, not a big magazine or big newspaper like Nation or Standard, it was a small tabloid, but it was widely read. I would actually say today it would be like TikTok, people reading on TikTok, people watching on, sending messages to each other on WhatsApp. But it called itself the Kangura, which meant awake, and it was supposed to awaken the Hutu conscience. And then it started targeting. And I think for me it was a big deal because the first target was the Tutsi women. They were said, whether the Tutsi woman is your wife or your mother, you have to be very careful, or your concubine or your employee, be careful because she's working with her brothers outside. She's never loyal. They talked about people with businesses. Don't join this particular, these people are never trustworthy. Guys, if you listen to some of these lines, you can't trust these people with business. They will always cheat you. So you must, as a Hutu, not have business dealings with Tutsi. So slowly, they start isolating the group. Everybody wonders, how could one day people, your neighbor, ordinary people, wake up and kill people just like that? How is it possible? In fact, most of the Rwandese I know, they said nobody thought it was possible. UNAMIR was right there, and they just put away, it's just talk. Nobody thought it was possible that a genocide could happen by ordinary young people with machetes, not by, people see gangs and other things, quite organized gangs, but these were just your neighbors picking up a machete and killing you or throwing you in a grave alive and you die, or you run to a church, and before churches were places of refuge, suddenly it was no longer a place of refuge. How do you reach a point when you think it is okay to kill somebody else, and there has to be propaganda around that? There has to be something that you do not feel you're killing a fellow human being. You're killing a snake, which is what they called the Tutsis. And we hear that even amongst ourselves, where you say some of these people are like snakes, these people are like this. Anyway, you're killing a snake. They call them inyenzi. What should you do with an inyenzi? It's a Bantu language, so inyenzi is like a cockroach, isn't it? What do you do with an inyenzi? What are you supposed to do? Exterminate it. And for days on end, young men were running on the streets singing, "We shall exterminate them." Yeah, we shall exterminate the inyenzi. But people were sitting back saying, it's not possible. And when we were young, we had a term that people would say, "Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me."
Yeah.
It never happens like that. Words are so powerful. The difference between this particular genocide, and I must say beforehand, even the Tutsis, there used to be killings of Tutsis from 1959. Why was this so effective?
Yeah.
The power of the pen. The pen is mightier than the sword. And in this place, I say the pen, because it was a newspaper. The word that you use is mightier than a sword.
Yeah.
And this is what led to this kind of inhumane, one person actually told me he wanted to kill his own mother. She was a Tutsi woman. He decided to kill her. So he's one person who turned out to be, to give evidence for the prosecution, took a plea deal. And he said he decided to do that because he felt he would kill her more humanely than other people. So it's better that he kills his own mother.
Wow.
So you would find that, somebody who was your best friend suddenly turns and you're like, what is this that is actually happening? Don't we know each other? Yeah. Haven't I done this for you? But then again, so there's the propaganda machine in which this person is no longer a human being. Their pain, their tears do not touch you. In fact, I remember people would say, I'd rather plead guilty to murder than rape. So I ask, why wouldn't you plead guilty to rape? He says, no, I have children. So murdering was easier than pleading to rape. And you look at it and you say, yes, they reached a point where people closed their eyes to the propaganda machine, which was the radio. And we all listen to the radio, and especially the vernacular radio. All of us know the power of the vernacular radio.
Right.
Especially during election time, everybody's speaking in their own vernacular. And we all have an oral tradition. And Rwanda is also a very oral community. So they would talk in proverbs. Yeah, quite a lot of proverbs. We've heard them about different tribes around us. But one of the proverbs I remember was that a Tutsi is so jealous that if you heal him, if he's sick and then you heal him, of his eyes blind, he'll wake up and the first thing he'll do is look at you with jealousy, wanting to take your things. So it was this thing that this person is not a person. And they're just, they're something that we should get rid of. And you have to get the whole population to believe it. So when you see this happening, and it begins slowly, it's time to wake up.
Yeah.
It is never okay to dehumanize somebody else. It is never okay. And that's why I say it's not a thin line. It is a line that is drawn in the sand, that this person is a human being, deserves to be respected, deserves to be treated with respect and with humanity.